A 28-year-old 8th-grade English teacher, 7 months pregnant, steps into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom, facing a $250 citation for leaving work early without authorization. What looks like a simple attendance violation quickly turns into a shocking account of what happened inside her school that day. When Judge Caprio asks why she left 30 minutes before dismissal, her explanation stops the entire room cold. She had been experiencing contractions every 5 minutes and was going into premature labor at just 32 weeks. Yet despite the obvious medical risk, her principal refused to let her leave the building, warning her she was probably exaggerating and threatening discipline if she walked out to seek medical help. What follows is one of the most unforgettable courtroom moments ever captured. Judge Caprio calling the school superintendent right from the bench, demanding an immediate investigation, and shining a spotlight on a system that seemed to prioritize rigid attendance rules over the health and safety of its own teachers. This moment would go on to be seen more than 108 million times and ignite a nationwide conversation about teacher treatment, workplace protections, and the dangerous pressures placed on educators. This is the story of Amanda Chin, the baby who nearly arrived 8 weeks too early, and the judge who made it clear that no career, no matter how meaningful, should ever require a parent to risk their child's life. It was November 14th in Providence, the kind of cold day when winter feels close. Inside Providence Municipal Court, Judge Caprio was about to confront a case that revealed the harsh reality many teachers face, the impossible battle between professional obligations and personal safety. The clerk called it out. State versus Amanda Chin. Providence School District. Citation for unauthorized departure from assigned duties. The moment she entered, it was obvious that this hearing carried more weight than a routine fine. Amanda walked slowly, her pregnancy unmistakable, moving with the careful steps of someone well in her 3rd trimester. Petite and soft-spoken, she wore a maternity dress and cardigan, holding a folder pressed close to her stomach. Her face carried exhaustion, stress, and the quiet fear of someone juggling both pregnancy and a legal matter at the same time. She reached the defense table, bracing her lower back with one hand before easing herself into the chair. Judge Caprio studied her for a moment, concern immediately replacing the typical formality. "Ms. Chin," he began gently, "before we get into this citation, I need to ask, when is your due date?" Amanda rested her hand on her belly. "January 18th, Your Honor. I'm 32 weeks along." "And this is your first child?" Caprio asked, softening. "Yes, Your Honor," she replied, her voice a mix of hope and worry. "My first, a girl." The judge offered a warm smile before turning back to the file, confusion forming on his face. "According to this citation," he said, reading slowly, "you're an 8th-grade English teacher at Roosevelt Middle School, and you were written up by your own school district for leaving your duties without authorization. The fine listed here is $250. What happened next would change everything." When Amanda was asked to explain what happened, no one expected the story she was about to share, a story that placed her in an impossible position no teacher, no mother, and no human being should ever face. She took a slow, steadying breath before speaking, her voice tight with emotion that she was clearly fighting to control. "Your Honor," she began, "I've been teaching 8th-grade English at Roosevelt for 6 years. I pour everything I have into that job. I've never been written up, never had a single complaint, and every student who walks through my door knows I'm committed to them. I'm the type of teacher who shows up early, stays late, and buys my own supplies because my students deserve a safe, supportive classroom." Then she continued, explaining that on May 3rd, at 32 weeks pregnant, everything changed. At IT was lunchtime, 12:30 p.m., and she was in the middle of a routine lesson when she suddenly felt the first contraction. At first, she brushed it off as simple false labor, but the contractions kept returning faster and harder. Every 10 minutes, then every 8. Judge Caprio immediately leaned forward, concerned. "You were having contractions while teaching?" "Yes, Your Honor," she replied. By 1 p.m., the pain was coming every 6 minutes, enough that she could barely stand upright. She assigned her students quiet work and hurried to the main office, hoping for immediate help. She told her principal, Ms. Rodriguez, that she needed to go to the hospital, that something felt seriously wrong, that she might be going into early labor. Amanda pulled out medical documents as she spoke, her hands trembling. I explained everything clearly, she said. I wasn't being dramatic. I was genuinely scared for my baby. But the response she received stunned the courtroom. Her principal told her to wait until the end of the school day, nearly 2 class periods away, because the school was short-staffed. She brushed off Amanda's contractions as first-time mom panic, insisting she was fine and should push through. Judge Caprio's expression hardened instantly. You were told to keep teaching while having contractions every few minutes? He asked in disbelief. Yes, Your Honor, Amanda whispered. She went back to class, trying to keep herself composed in front of her students while gripping her desk through waves of pain. Some of the children asked if she was okay. She lied and told them yes, even though every minute felt worse than the last. By 1:30 p.m., she couldn't take it anymore. The contractions were now hitting every 4 to 5 minutes. She could barely walk, barely think, and she knew waiting any longer was dangerous. She returned to the principal's office and begged to leave. What her principal said next shocked everyone. Amanda revealed a school policy manual and explained that Ms. Rodriguez opened it and read a rule stating that a teacher who leaves school without written authorization could face pay cuts, formal citations, or even termination. She was told that leaving 45 minutes early would count as abandoning her duties, and that waiting until dismissal would avoid consequences. The judge stood from the bench, something that rarely happened, and his anger was unmistakable. Let me be absolutely clear, he said. You were in active labor and told you might be punished if you sought medical help. Yes, Your Honor, she answered, crying openly now. She told me real teachers sacrifice. She said if I put my health before my students, maybe I wasn't meant for this career. That was the breaking point. Amanda said she realized no policy, no threat, and no job was worth risking her child's life. She walked out of the school, drove herself, alone, to the hospital while having contractions just minutes apart. Her husband was an hour away, and she didn't have time to wait. Judge Caprio stared at her in shock and respect. To the hospital. Doctors rushed her into evaluation. She was officially in active premature labor at 32 weeks. Had she waited, her baby could have been born dangerously early, needing NICU support and facing high-risk complications. Doctors administered emergency treatment, stopped the labor, and kept her hospitalized for several days. Miraculously, her baby stayed safe for 6 more weeks and was finally born healthy at full term, but Amanda's voice broke again as she said, if I had stayed at school even 45 more minutes, I could have delivered in the hallway, in my car, or without medical help. Leaving saved my daughter's life. But what happened next made the courtroom collectively gasp. While she was still in the hospital on bed rest, the school district sent her official notices. Not words of concern. Not a single question about her or her baby's health. Instead, they sent fines. She was formally cited for unauthorized departure, charged $250, and informed $180 would be deducted from her pay for the period she missed. They also warned her that her actions, choosing her baby over her job, would be written into her permanent record. Judge Caprio's face darkened as he read the letter. You were punished financially for going to the hospital during premature labor? Yes, Your Honor, Amanda said, her voice shaking with humiliation and anger. She explained her financial situation. How she makes $48,000 a year, how she and her husband struggle to manage bills, and how a $430 penalty is enough to destabilize their budget for the month. But more than the money, she said, was the insult behind it. I have dedicated everything to that school, she said. And instead of compassion, they treated me like someone who did something wrong for protecting my child. Judge Caprio set the letter aside with visible outrage. Preparing to deliver a response to the courtroom, Judge Caprio leaned forward as he addressed Amanda Chin, the 28-year-old teacher, standing before him. Ms. Chin, you said you're 32 weeks pregnant. When is your due date? January 18th, Your Honor, she replied. 8 weeks from now. Caprio glanced at her file. And what kind of maternity leave do you receive from the school district? Amanda sighed, wearing the tired look of someone stretched past their limit. Your Honor, teachers in Rhode Island don't get paid maternity leave. We get 5 sick days per year, and I already used mine for prenatal appointments. After that, I can take unpaid FMLA, but unpaid means no income. Most teachers return to work 3 or 4 weeks after giving birth because they simply can't afford more time off. Caprio's expression changed immediately. So you'll give birth in January and be back in a classroom by February? That's the only option we can afford, she said quietly. Something in the judge snapped. Ms. Chin, this citation is dismissed completely. You did nothing wrong. You were in premature labor, and you protected your baby. That is not a violation of anything. Amanda burst into tears, relieved, but Caprio wasn't finished. What happened to you is unacceptable. Your principal endangered your life and your child's life. I'm making some calls. Right there in the courtroom, he called the school superintendent, demanding an investigation into the principal who refused to let Amanda leave during active contractions. He then contacted the Department of Labor, the teachers' union, and the ACLU, reporting possible pregnancy discrimination and workplace violations. After the calls, he looked back at Amanda. You weren't just fined. You were mistreated by a system that offers teachers almost nothing and expects everything in return. Then he did something no one expected. Judge Caprio stepped down from the bench with his personal checkbook. When is your baby due? January 18th, she whispered. Caprio wrote a check for $2,000. This is not for your fine. It's for your time at home with your newborn. You should not have to return to work after 3 weeks because you can't afford unpaid leave. Amanda tried to refuse, but Caprio insisted. Moments later, something even more powerful happened. People in the courtroom began standing up and donating money. Retired teachers, parents, and strangers came forward, handing Amanda whatever they could. $20, $50, $100, even checks up by the end. She had more than $8,000 in donations. Judge Caprio closed the hearing with one final message. You came here expecting to lose money. You are leaving with support, protection, and the understanding that your work matters. Take care of your baby. Take care of yourself. And remember, you deserve better than what the system has given you. You're someone who put your baby's safety above everything else, even your job. You're someone who drove yourself to the hospital in active labor because no one else stepped up. You're someone who refused to let a flawed system punish you for doing what any parent would do. That isn't weakness, that's courage. And your daughter, as well as your students, are lucky to have someone like you guiding them. The video of Amanda Chin's court appearance hit social media that same evening, and the title alone lit a fire across the country. Pregnant teacher fined for leaving during labor. Judge's reaction shocks everyone. What followed was an explosion. Within hours, millions were watching, sharing, and demanding answers. But it wasn't just views. It was outrage and action. The comment section became a flood of real stories. Teachers describing miscarriages during class, emergencies ignored, and a culture that treats educators as if they're replaceable. One comment hit 2.3 million likes. I miscarried at school and was told to wait until lunch. This is what teachers deal with. Judge Caprio wrote Amanda a $2,000 personal check. The courtroom audience added $6,400. People called it a moment of real community, something teachers rarely receive. And then major changes started rolling in. Within 24 hours, Principal Rodriguez was placed on leave. The school district suspended its medical authorization rule. The teachers' union filed a grievance. The Labor Department opened a discrimination investigation. A GoFundMe aiming for $10,000 past $340,000. Within 2 days, 10,000 educators shared their own stories under the hashtag Teachers Are Human Too. National unions demanded action. Legislators announced maternity leave bills. Other states began reviewing their policies. Within 1 week, Rhode Island passed emergency legislation giving teachers 8 weeks of paid maternity leave. 15 states announced similar proposals. The principal was fired. The superintendent apologized. Amanda received a settlement from the district. 1 month later, Amanda's law was formally adopted. No educator can be punished or fined for seeking emergency medical care. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. On January 18th, Amanda gave birth to a healthy baby girl, Grace Elizabeth. She's called Grace because that's what we were shown, Amanda said. And Elizabeth for my grandmother, also a teacher. 12 weeks of paid leave allowed her to recover and bond with her daughter without fear of losing everything. When she returned to Judge Caprio's courtroom, she carried Grace in her arms. "Your Honor," Amanda said softly, "this is the baby you helped save." Grace cooed, and the courtroom fell silent. Amanda explained how the judge's decision and the public response changed her life and thousands of others. She revealed that the settlement, donations, and support allowed her to start the Grace Chin Teacher Support Fund, which has already assisted dozens of teachers facing medical emergencies, maternity costs, or sudden crises. "We're turning something painful into something meaningful," she said, "because teachers shouldn't have to choose between their jobs and their families. They shouldn't be punished for being human." Judge Caprio smiled, proud and emotional, and Grace slept peacefully in her mother's arms, a quiet symbol of how one story, one moment, and one act of compassion can reshape an entire system. She looked down at her daughter and said quietly, "This little girl almost came 8 weeks early because my principal cared more about procedure than people. But because you chose compassion over red tape, Grace is here, healthy. I got maternity leave, and the law changed for thousands of teachers. Your Honor, you didn't just help save my baby, you helped fix a broken system." Judge Caprio stepped down from the bench and stood beside Amanda and baby Grace. "Amanda," he said gently, "you showed the bravery. You chose your child when your employer tried to intimidate you. You drove yourself to the hospital in active labor because you understood what mattered. And you stood here and told your story despite how painful it was. You're the hero." He looked at Grace with a warm smile. "And this little one will grow up knowing her mother is strong, principled, and unafraid to stand up for what's right. She'll grow up knowing her mom helped change laws that will protect countless women. That's a legacy most people only dream of leaving." Amanda wiped her tears as she spoke. "Your Honor, in the darkest moment of my pregnancy, when I was scared and ashamed, when I was being punished for saving my own baby, you treated me like a human being. You reminded me that my daughter's life mattered more than attendance codes. You helped me financially when I couldn't see a way forward. And most importantly, you gave me my dignity back." She took a breath. "I'm returning to teaching next month. Same school, new principal. And I know I'll be a better teacher now that I'm a mother. I finally understand the weight of what parents trust us with every day. I know the fear and love that come with protecting a child. I'll never forget that teachers are human beings first." Today, Amanda Chin is 30, back in her 8th grade English classroom at Roosevelt Middle School. Grace is 18 months old, strong, cheerful, and thriving. Amanda's husband handles mornings while she teaches, and for the first time, they can afford stable childcare thanks to the settlement and community support. Meanwhile, the Grace Chin Teacher Support Fund has grown to over $800,000, helping 347 teachers facing medical emergencies, maternity expenses, or sudden family crises across Rhode Island. Amanda's Law, which protects educators from being penalized for seeking emergency medical care, has now been adopted in 23 states. Rhode Island's paid maternity leave program sparked similar laws in 12 more. The viral video is now shown in policy classes, labor rights seminars, and teacher training programs as a powerful example of how one case can transform an entire system. Judge Caprio keeps a photo on his desk, Amanda holding newborn Grace in the hospital, with her handwritten message, "Thank you for reminding me that humanity comes first." Amanda tells her students, "My baby nearly came 8 weeks early because I was told that being a good teacher meant sacrificing even my child. Judge Caprio taught me the opposite, that teachers are whole people with families and limits. You can't pour from an empty cup. Choosing your family isn't weakness. It's survival." And when Judge Caprio reflects on the case, he puts it simply, Amanda drove herself to the hospital in active labor because her principal threatened her. That tells you how lost the system had become. Teachers give everything, their time, their energy, their hearts. The least we can do is allow them medical emergencies without punishment. A simple $250 fine, a few phone calls, and one $2,000 check triggered a wave of change. Because one teacher refused to accept the unacceptable. Because one baby's safe arrival proved the right call was made. Because Amanda's law will protect countless educators from facing the same impossible choice.